Time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Ow!
Hello, my name is Zachariah Van Siders, and you have decided for whatever reason to tune into another horrible game review. Before we get into it, I want to do a couple of disclaimers. Number one, the horrible in the title of this video does not necessarily refer to the game or content that I am reviewing, but more the actual review itself. I do this out of my basement with all the spare time that I have. I also only get about 5 to 10 hours with these games, so this is more of a snap judgment review. So just keep that in mind as you progress through this. Number two, I don't give scored reviews for games. I think video games are one of the most subjective forms of art. Therefore, I will give you an overview of the game itself. I will then give you the pros and the cons of that game from my point of view, which all reviews are. And then I'll tell you whether I personally will be sticking with the game outside the purposes of this review. So, today's game, fun stuff. It's Wasteland 3. Inexhile has released the long-awaited sequel to Wasteland 2. And this is a very interesting game. Basically, what is this? This is a role-playing game in the old-school fashion, kind of in your Pillars of Eternity sort of thing. But this is a post-apocalyptic game. So how this game starts off, you are members of a group called the Desert Rangers. They are basically like, I don't know, heroes, self-made heroes, self-made police force sort of thing. They are traveling into the Colorado frozen wastes. And the entire world is, like I said, post-apocalyptic after a nuclear holocaust. In any case, hijinks ensue, but you end up being the only ones to survive. And then you get to basically build out a ranger faction in this new area on your own, which is a lot of fun. Right off the bat, you are able to create the two characters you start with. You can, of course, select some pre-selected ones if you want to get into the action a little bit quicker. But I love a good character creation, and this has a pretty decent character creation. You have some option. You get to mess with their stats, their skills, everything, even quirks and stuff of the character. It's interesting to make them very unique statistically. Then you basically go through Colorado doing side quests, doing missions, trying to kind of unfold this weird, very post-apocalyptic story of like the evil family members and whatnot. Now, one thing I want to point out, the combat in this game is all tactical. It happens on a grid and it is turn-based. Each character on your team has a certain set of action points each round based on their skills, stats, and other criteria, and then you have to factor in everything, whether or not an enemy has cover, environmental hazards, status effects. It runs the gambit basically. So combat is very slow and very methodical. There are two types. You can have up to 6 characters in your game. 4 of them, you max out 4 of them as rangers, which mean characters that are kind of either custom or randomly generated. And then you get up to 2 companions, I believe, maybe more, I'm not sure. But companions are characters that are in the game and part of the storyline, but they end up, you can have them join your party, like old school RPGs, basically. And while you can level them up and customize them from that point on, they start what they start at. In addition to that, there's this really cool skill called Animal Whisper, which allows you to, tame animals so that they kind of follow you around and fight for you, which is kind of cool. Dogs and cats and whatnot. Now, people who have played this game before people who haven't played a game like this, you can go into it. The story is plenty good that you're not going to miss out on anything from before. There will be references that may leave you a little lost, but they do a pretty good job of explaining them as they go. Not saying that there's a couple of times where you could get lost, but returners to the series will see a couple of new things. They have this new system called strikes, which basically players save up hits, and then it kind of gives them an ultimate attack, which is kind of an interesting new addition to the game, as well as perks, which I do not believe were in 2. I could be wrong. I did play quite a bit of 2, but I don't remember the perks being in there, which are these things you get, little special passive and active abilities that you can buy into as you level up. Once you get through the initial opening stuff, you start with just a duo, like I said. But once you get through the initial opening stuff, you get one companion pretty early. But then you can actually just buy out characters and create every character in your roster. I don't know if I'm using the right footage in this or not, but you'll see that like I had the most fun with that. And we'll get to it in the pros, but I created myself and my wife to start. And then, of course, I had to add Philbilly and a tiny wizard, which was a lot of fun. The amount of skills, attributes, and perks, as well as weapon types, allow you to really create some unique characters. And there's something really satisfying to having a full fleshed out team with everybody having kind of their purpose in both a fight and outside a fight. So, you know what? That's the basis. I don't think any more needs to be said about it, but let's go into the pros and cons. Pros, something they added from the last game is they added these very cool cutscenes, which they didn't really have in the last one, where it would cut to a character, and then you can have like if it's a very specific like dramatic moment, you can actually interact with a character as if you're looking at them, which is it's just really cool. It really brings you into the game a little bit better, and I like that. Yeah, and the characters are really good, which brings me to my next pro. The voice acting in this is phenomenal. At least from what I've seen, it's just great. Even lines that are very cheesy and silly are delivered with such impeccable skill in this that it kind of defeats that. You know, I almost have to like remind myself, oh, that was kind of cheesy that they did that, but it's very well done voice acting on that level. My next pro is a little bit bigger and wider swathing, and that's the freedom of this game. You might not like tactical turn-based. It is very slow and methodical, and if it's not your type, I understand. However, if you just look at the character creation and world stuff, it's really, really cool how they were able to tell such a story with so many different branching things you could do. Plus, having so many original characters just open to you. I loved sitting there for just basically an hour and creating Philbilly, who is just this cowboy hat wearing psycho who just punches everything to death. And then I made a tiny wizard who is just this huge dude with a tank cannon, but he's actually not very good with the weapons. He's smarter with the robots and stuff. You know, and it was really cool. You know, I made myself, who was just this fat old man with a rifle, and then my wife, who's just a badass. Like, it was really cool to like do that, to take those characters and just make them in the game and then use them. And it also gives you this like real attachment to these made up characters. And I really enjoyed that aspect. I can't stress enough the freedom of this game is just, I mean, and I know it's linear. But I have to remind myself that it's linear, and that is tricky. And you can go in different directions. Don't get me wrong, but like they very clearly mark certain missions with a level number that I'm nowhere near yet, and there's only ever like 1 or 2 quests open to characters of my level, so that's kind of what you have to do. But I think that's one of the big awesome points of this game. All right, so that brings me to cons. My first con, and possibly most important, is and other people might not have a hard time with this. I have a real hard time setting up the fights beforehand. It's very clear that you're able to switch to one character or have them all on or whatever, and it's real easy to lose your way on which character you have active, which character you don't have active. Because of that, I'm often accidentally walking into the way and losing my initiative bonus from firing first on bad guys. Again, that's probably a nitpick that might come from my lack of experience, but just felt like I should mention it. I felt like there should be more like highlighting on the character heads to show me which character was the one that was active. My only other con, and this might be a PC only con because I have not played this on console, but the camera, I have to move the camera with the mouse no matter what I'm doing, instead of it just centering on the character that I have active. That might be a setting. Again, that might be inexperience. I'm going to keep playing with it. I only get a few hours with it, and it was more valuable for me to play than to mess with the settings. But if this is the only thing that can be done, it's a little annoying. Again, though, those are just like nitpicks and possibly even lack of experience that creates that problem. So that brings me to whether or not I'm going to stick with it. I definitely am. I love this game. I'm very into it right now. I'm very into the fights and how they work. I will say, while I don't want to say this is a con because I don't necessarily think it is one, the time sink on this game is very great, just because of how long the battles and how in-depth they can get. Because of that, it might keep me from playing it as much just because I have to play so many games for the channel. But I really love playing this game. I really want, like, the minute I put it down, I'm thinking about going back to it again. Like, that's the kind of mind worm that this game has become for me. So highly recommend it to anybody out there who likes tactical turn-based shooters, or not shooters, but tactical turn-based RPGs with a very different spin. This isn't really breaking the mold for those, but it is a very, very good version of it. So I hope this helps you guys out. You can, of course, contact us on Facebook at Old Man Gaming DH, on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9. You can check us out on Discord. The link is in the description below. You can influence this and all of our shows from there. And, of course, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification button if you love us. And as long as you guys keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. See you guys next week.